All right, welcome everyone to this today's webinar, part of the Open Pedagogy webinar series, which I'll tell you all about a little bit more in a second. My name is Chris Price. I am the Academic Programs Manager for the SUNY Center for Professional Development. Today's webinar is, as you can see on the screen there, OER enabled Constructionist Pedagogy in a Social Science course with Dr. Veronika Dolar. I'll give Veronika a proper introduction shortly, but first I want to tell everybody a little bit about this series. If I could advance my screen. So here's the schedule that we've had so far for the series. You see we're getting close to the end, but you can still register for the final 3 webinars that we have planned. I'm especially excited about the one to hear about student perspectives on open pedagogy. I think that should be great. So if you're interested in signing up for any of those, you can do that still at the on the screen there at the website. And I should also mention that we are recording all these webinars, and so if you didn't get a chance to participate in any of the previous webinars, you can go to that website, and on the schedule you'll see a recording link for each of the past webinars. So this webinar series is being sponsored in part by the SUNY Fact 2 Committee, which I'll talk about in a second, but SUNY is a 64 campus system. You can see where we are throughout New York State. About half of our campuses are community colleges, and half of them are 4-year colleges and university centers. I'm mentioning that because we did open this webinar series up to folks outside of SUNY. So if you're not familiar with SUNY, that is who we are. And if you could see where Veronika's campus down there on Long Island on the North Shore, as she was just talking about, in Old Westbury. I am actually in Rochester. If you look up by Monroe Community College, that's where my office is, even though I work for system administration, and I used to work at Brockport, which is up there by Lake Ontario. So as I mentioned, this is being co-sponsored by the Faculty Advisory Council on Teaching and Technology, the Fact 2 Committee. And the Fact 2 Committee advises the SUNY Provost on matters regarding teaching and technology. And currently this year, there's a task force on open education initiatives. And we're focusing on open pedagogies in 2018-2020. And that's why we came up with this series. And we're being co-sponsored by the Open Education Consortium. And I'll let Susan talk about the OEC. Susan?
Hi, welcome everyone. And we are also really excited to be co-hosting with SUNY. We are the Open Education Consortium, a global nonprofit member-based organization with members literally throughout the world in over 44 countries. And right now we have a little over 245 members we're excited to announce. But as I mentioned, we are a global nonprofit. Some of our major activities you may be familiar with. One we just concluded, Open Education Week, was last week. That is a global event focused on open education. And I'm excited to announce we had right at 6,700 participants from 123 countries, which was our largest event ever. We also sponsor the Open Education Awards, which we just released the call for nominations this past Monday. So check out our website and submit someone that you feel fits one of our categories. And then, of course, OE Global, which is coming up in November in Milan. So check out each of these events. And back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Susan. Oh, sorry. So that's the other slide. I think we always forget to go to the next slide. There's some of the things that Susan was talking about there. And so Dr. Veronika Dolar, she's in the Department of Politics, Economics, and Law at SUNY Old Westbury, where she teaches introductory micro and macroeconomics, health economics, labor economics, and a new course in food and wine economics, which I'd love to take. I heard a lot about it when I worked with Veronika in a workshop, an open educational resource workshop last spring. It was actually a year ago, and that's where I first met Veronika. Her current research interests include health economics, focusing on eating decision, nutrition and obesity, labor economics, focusing on the minimum wage, as well as economic education. And this is the really cool thing I wanted to highlight in her bio. Most recently, she introduced students at SUNY Westbury to a national Up to Us campaign and competition. The main goal of the nonpartisan campaign is to involve students in the debate about fiscal sustainability and the economic impact that our growing national debt will have on their future. Because of the incredible student engagement on campus, SUNY Westbury won first place in that national competition. So that's really cool. Congrats.
It's actually pretty cool.
So what I'll do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Veronika share her screen. And while she does that, I'll just say if anybody has questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I will make sure to give them to Veronika at the end of the session. So take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. So again, my name is Veronika Dolar, and hopefully you guys can see my screen now. Everybody can see the slides that I'm presenting. Okay, perfect. So that's the introduction. I'm an economist. I am a microeconomist, I guess, and I'm still fairly new to OER, and I'm fairly new to using OER material and using the open pedagogy, but I pretty much sort of just jumped in and start experimenting with what's available. So that's what I want to share with you today. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on a course that I taught last year. Again, it's this economics of food and wine, or food and wine economics. And I'm teaching this course this year as well, but in a slightly different way, focusing on countries in Central America and their food production. So that's basically the focus this year. Last year we had a slightly different focus. But in any case, how do I start this class, and what do students actually do, and how do I use this open pedagogy? I engage students in creating websites. Basically, I think that's the big underlying theme that guides everything. And this was already mentioned, right? So I use OER in my classes. These are the classes that I've been teaching here at SUNY Westbury, but I'm going to be focusing on the food and wine economics class. And I'm going to show you my website, and I'm going to show you what my students are doing and how I'm engaging them in class. But really, to sort of understand what's going on with this is to read some of these quotes that I sort of present in one of my first lectures when I go to class. It says, "We learn best when we are actively engaged in constructing something that has personal meaning to us, be it a poem, a robot, a sandcastle, or a computer program," right? So the idea here is that you're trying to get students to create something, to engage in something that they're constructing, and not just that. What's actually important when we're learning things is not only that we're constructing something and that we're engaged, but we're constructing a public entity. I think this is another quote that I really like. And this is where students really sort of feel that they're part of something bigger than just this class. I also like to say that one of the things they're going to be doing in my class is that they're going to be moving away from knowledge consumers to become knowledge creators. And from this idea of disposable assignments, you probably heard this quite a bit up to now. From these disposable, assignments destined for a recycled bin, where you write a paper, you finish your problem set, and you hand it in. I grade it, you get a grade, and that's it. What's the use of the assignment afterwards? But when everything is on the web and they're creating these websites, they're creating this knowledge, they put a lot more effort into it. That's basically one of the best things that I have noticed from students. And I really want to move them towards these renewable assignments where their work adds value to the world. And it really matters. That's basically where you sort of start seeing students getting engaged with the class material, with assignments on a much more profound and deeper level that I have seen in my other classes. And one of the reasons for that, I think, has to do with the fact that they know that it is public, that other people can see it. And in fact, one of the things that really sort of encourage people to do even better or put in more time and effort into the class is the fact that other faculty members here at SUNY Westbury were checking their work as well, right? So you know, another professor in the department was checking out the slides and then made a comment to a couple of students saying like, oh, wow, you did a pretty good job. That was pretty impressive. I read your website, I read your comments. And I think that's when they realized that it's not just me looking at this, but it's other faculty members and other students, right, in class working on it as well. And so basically, you know, by the way, the slides that you're seeing now, these are exactly the same slides that I present to my students, you know, during my first week of introduction to the course. And I basically tell them that they're going to be creating these learning artifacts, that they're going to be the authors of it, but basically they're going to be sharing this material online. And one of the things that I also do in this class is that so I mean, to some extent, it takes a little bit of time away from the actual course content that I want to cover, but you know, we catch up in other ways as well. You know, you need to sort of explain to them, you know, what is OER, Open Educational Resources, what is Creative Commons, and all those CC BY licenses, and we need to talk about intellectual property rights and things like that. So you need to sort of engage them in that and in the conversation. For this course, it actually comes pretty nicely, and it ties in with all these other things that we are discussing. So, for example, in food and wine economics, one of the things we talk about at length is the patent laws, right, that Monsanto, for example, has when it comes to the seeds and Roundup and things like that, and how they're sort of monopolizing the economy and what kind of pressure they're putting on farmers. And I sort of tie that in with this idea of, well, you know, what about the knowledge? Who has the access to knowledge? Who can gain knowledge? Who can add to the library of the material that is out there? So it sort of ties pretty nicely with what I'm actually teaching and what they actually need to know. And that's basically what I want to get from them. And the way the class is organized, I talk about, again, this idea of the campfire, that I typically teach stuff that I know some things about, but I'm not the expert, and that they can also explore other venues in terms of how much they want to go into specific industry. When it comes to food industry, right now they had to pick their own countries that they're exploring. I'm not an expert on Central America. I don't know particularly what's happening in Belize and Costa Rica, but I can help them prepare the website. We can talk about it, we can learn from it. I have the tools, and then they can use the tools to actually create all this material. And really the most interesting part, what I want to share with you, is the websites and to show you how everything is built up. But before I do that, before I close my PowerPoint slides, I just want to show you a little comment that I already got last year. So I got an email from a professor at Addis Ababa Science and Technology University in Ethiopia. And he basically found my website, Food and Wine Economics, and he said that he's teaching this food economics for food science students, that there was not a lot of material available, either as textbooks or even at the university. And he was extremely appreciative of the fact that, you know, we are putting all this material on the website so that his students can be using this as well. So, and this was literally, you know, 2 months after I finished teaching the class, and already I got a feedback. And this is just somebody that, you know, that contacted me saying that he is using the material, but I'm guessing other people might be benefiting from these sites and what my students are putting together and what I have actually created as well. All right, so then I'm gonna close this and I'm gonna show you the website for the class. So this is the website for the Food and Wine Economics. And oh yeah, one of the things I just want to mention, I didn't even mention this to Chris before, is the course actually has also been selected to be part of the UNESCO Open Education for Better World mentoring program. So basically what this means is that I also am sort of involved with getting a little bit more feedback in terms of how to teach this course by using the Sustainable Development Goals. And we're basically addressing 3 goals from the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. So that's part of that as well. This just happened a few weeks back. So this is my website, and then if you go over here, this is where you can see what I have available for my class. And one of the things that I should mention is that I use Google Sites. One of the reasons why I use Google Sites is because most of my students have Gmail and they use Google Docs, and they're fairly familiar with how to use that. And it's very basic and very simple to use. So I don't want to spend that much time talking about the logistics, how to create a website. I just want to sort of just jump right in and start using it, and students should be using it as well. And the very first there, and I all of this actually works. And then I can show you some of the materials. So this is my lecture and class material from 2018. So I post all my lectures over here, and there might be PowerPoint slides. And again, you're going to see this is the introduction, and see OER enabled constructionist pedagogy. What I'm basically telling you in a very few minutes, I explain all of that to my students as well, just to get the buy-in, to have the students understand why this matters, why it's important, what are they going to learn from it. So these are again my lectures that I posted, all the material that I can find, some comments about designing the website and so on. So that's what they're getting from me, and then obviously the assignments that they have. Now let me show you what the students are actually doing. So these are the student sites from 2018, from last year. Just some examples. So Amanda, for example, this is the website that she created. So welcome to my page. And again, the very first thing that they were doing is a very basic page, and there's not much to it, but then they start building more and more into it. So these are the lecture notes. Let's say week 2 lecture notes. So they're coming to class and they're writing these things down. They're organizing it. They're finding more material, and they're finding videos online and so on. So basically, they're really sort of engaged in not just learning, but sort of writing about it, and then finding more and more information that deals with what we're basically doing. And then for the assignments, so for example, they had a problem set. This is the problem set, so they're answering these things, and everything is basically being put together in a nice, neat fashion. And another thing that I sort of found out by sort of making everything public and accessible to students is that they sort of they learn from each other, right? So one of the things that the best students do, they want to really do it well, and they're really coming up with these beautiful sites. And other students who might not be as good in creating the sites, or might be struggling with the material, they go to their classmates' sites, and they're learning from what's there, right? So a lot of the times it's not they're not using the same numbers. They have to calculate different things. But at least they get an idea how this stuff is calculated, how it can be done, and we discuss what they have done on their websites in class. They get feedback from me. And so it's really a joint effort, and there needs to be quite a bit of trust, I guess, involved as well. I mean, this is something that I'm not still very comfortable doing myself. The fact that you go there and you're teaching something that I barely know myself, right? I mean, just how to create this Google site was something that I pretty much learned last year. And I showed them, look, I mean, I don't know how to do this. Let's try to figure it out. And when you have questions, how would you go about? How would you figure out and answer this question? So we just sort of learn from each other, and we say, okay, we don't know how to do this. Let's try to figure it out. Does anybody know how to answer this question? And so we work together. Many times we spend time in the computer lab as well. So this is something that we were also doing. And we were learning together that way, and just sort of figuring out what goes where. Another thing that I just want to, maybe the last thing before I run out of time, that I want to mention for this year, I don't want that. I want student sites for 2019. One of the things that I was a little bit more vocal this year is basically making sure that when they're posting their material over here, they do know how to which license to use, and that they basically give the proper attributions when they're using other people's work and citing the sources the right way. So it's sort of the same thing as like writing a research paper, but they're creating websites, and they also need to cite, but they need to cite in a slightly different way. They can link out, they can use some other material. So it's a very rich environment for students to learn and sort of bring the information together, curate it, organize it, summarize it, and this way basically create something new that other people can actually learn from it as well. All right, I think I talked. I'm gonna stop sharing now, I think. And let's see, how do I do this?
Just hit stop share.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
Right.
here we go.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Veronika? While we wait for folks and to maybe pop things in the chat. One just logistical question I had as you were talking is, how much time do you have to spend in your class helping students set the websites up? I know Google Sites is relatively easy to use, but I'm guessing that some of them probably you have to take a little time to walk them through it.
Right, so I would say that maybe it takes, in the first week when we're just setting up the class, I asked them to do this first assignment, which is, create your web page. I have created a little video lecture for it. So basically they just have to follow along, click this, do this, click that. And they usually, I show them in class first how it's done. They watch the little video that I prepared. And then basically, let's say that the class is on Wednesday, they have the weekend to work on it. And on Monday, they basically ask some questions. And there are sort of their typical mistakes that they might not share the image the right way, or they might not cite the stuff in the correct way. So basically work on that. But it's really just, I would say, one lecture on that, sort of, giving them the idea of, what these websites are, how to create it, and then it's just, as the class progresses, it just gets a lot more sophisticated, basically. And as I said, like some of the websites that my students prepared, they're a lot better than mine, right? So they really get into it, or they show me little tricks, like, oh, this is how you do it, this is how you can embed this, and this is how you can do this. So as I said, it's really, we all learn together, yeah.
It looks like Alexis Clifton has a question. I think it's Alexis, SUNY OER Services. She says, hello, and can you say a little more about the UNESCO involvement? How did you get connected with that project, and would you recommend it to other faculty?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I think, I'm not quite sure. I'm part of so many mailing lists when it comes to OER. So at one point somebody mentioned this UNESCO, how is it called again? Let me just pull it up. Open Education for a Better World, right? That's the official UNESCO's Open Education for a Better World. And basically what they do is they're accepting, I think every year there's a call for course proposals. And what the idea is that if you're teaching a course that is using sustainable development goals, and you're incorporating that directly into your course, you might deselect it. And then again, it's a little bit of a guidance in terms of how to incorporate it, how to use the OER material. So a lot of it, some of it, it's a little bit repetitive, because I think SUNY is doing such a good job in providing all this training for the faculty. So I think I'm more advanced than most people that are joining, but I think the most important part here is that it deals with the sustainable development goals. So you can pick one, you can pick two, or as many as you want, and that's basically what you're incorporating in your course.
Very cool. Any other? I put the link in the chat to that website, and also your website. Don't see any others, but I actually had a question. So what? Wait, here we go. Heather Maselli says, hi, Veronika, I'm working on a similar project using Google Sites, and I'm just wondering how you address privacy issues with your student authors.
So one of the things that has to be clear is that everything that they're publishing, it's public, anybody can read it, and they also have to give this CC BY license. If there are things that they want to write and they don't want to publish it, they can always send that to me directly, and we can have another parallel grading. So for example, they can make an assignment, they can write a problem set, but they don't want to share it. So they always have an option to send me that directly. I have to say that not one student up to now has used this option, but it's very important that, you know, it's clear from day one that what they're publishing, it's theirs. The copyright applies to them just like it does normally, but that it's under the Creative Commons license. And that everybody can see it. So this is something that, you know, as I said, like, I mean, other students in class can see it, other faculty can see it, the rest of the world can see it. Now, in the beginning, this is a little bit paralyzing to some, right? I mean, they're a little bit overwhelmed, but quickly, once they start building, once they have sort of this basic framework for the website, I think they become very comfortable and they start posting more, and they're, integrating a lot more. And another thing that I have found, is that many times, I mean, I'm new, this is my second year teaching at SUNY Westbury. So I like to challenge my students a lot. I like to push the envelope. I come up with very difficult assignments. And in the first semester when I was teaching my health economics, a lot of people were saying, yeah, but I mean, this is too difficult. Nobody knows how to do it. Right? And I was like, well, that's not true. I mean, there are people who are doing it. You know, what are your problems? What are your issues? Talk to me. And here, basically, this excuse that nobody knows how to do it, this is way too difficult, this is impossible for us to do, that sort of goes, down the drain, because there are sites, there are students that are doing it, and the people who might be struggling with the material can actually look at that as an example and see, that's what she's looking for. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So it really helps, right? So the very good students are motivated even more to do better, and they're pushed beyond their boundaries. And the people, the students that are struggling a little bit, they're also helped by these better students that are sort of leading the way and helping them. But it's clear from the day one that whatever they put on the website, it's public, so they have to be careful. We talk about this, and so that's one of the things that we discuss. Yeah.
Judith Littlejohn asks, what is your typical class size, and are all the students' sites published, or just a few of the better ones?
No, all of them. So all of the students, so basically on day one, I come up with a class list and I put the students' names down, and I'm just waiting for them to send me the link so that I can make the link to their to the website. So so there's no screen. I mean, what I showed you were some of the better ones, but if you go to my website right now, you're going to see the work by all the students. And what's interesting is that even, some, let's say, like struggling student in the beginning, sometimes they come up, there's a topic and it's like they're really interested in it, and that topic, for example, is where they might create a better website or better information than somebody else. So all of it, it's there. Yeah.
And what's your typical class size?
Yeah, so this is the writing intensive course. So on average, I would say between 12 to 15 students. That's pretty much where I'm at right now. So I have quite a bit of luxury to sort of work with them also individually, give them comments and so on. So clearly, that's where we stand right now.
And are you doing this for other courses? Donna asked that.
Yes, I do. I do. So even in my larger courses, what I do is I don't do the entire course as intensely as this, but I have these open educational assignments where even in my intro, micro, and macro, there's an assignment that it's online. Everybody can also access that, and they have an option there, because I don't spend that much time talking about the Creative Commons license and the fact that it's public and so on. They can just create a regular assignment and hand it in, or create a website, and again, it becomes public. And students do opt for that, because one of the things that I also tell them, so this is how you get students on board, at least that's how I see it, is that they create this website, they create some information. So in my micro and macro course, they have to find some data on the most current data for macroeconomics, for example, right? What's the Fed fund rates, what's the GDP per capita, inflation rate, unemployment, and so on. So they create this, and they create these graphs, and they look very sophisticated. And it's not that difficult given the tools that are out there. They look very sophisticated, and then they write about these graphs, and they create a website for it. So I say, look, I mean, this is what you're going to put on your LinkedIn account. This is what you're going to be showing to your potential employers to say, I can do all of this. I cannot just, it's not just I took this intro macroeconomics course, but I can, you know, I can get the data. Look, I can get it. It's right here. I can talk and write about this data. Look, it's right here. Not just that, I can create a website where I present all this material, right? So it's a pretty powerful punch when it comes to what they're able to do, and it's not that difficult, and it really pulls them in. As I said, like, I mean, they know that this is bigger than just this one-time assignment. They really start to use it as a you know, potential of getting internships, potential for getting job interviews, and doing better with that. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so we're just about out of time. So thank you, Veronika. Thank you, everybody else. That was really great. I really liked your analogy around like looking at a class like a campfire analogy. I thought I'd never heard that before, and I think that's a really good one. It's appealing. I may borrow that, steal that.
Okay, go for it. Yes, thanks.
I'll give you attribution.
I found it somewhere too, so I think it's cited where it comes from. So.
All the best ideas are usually from somewhere else. So anyway, Thank you very much. Thanks everybody else. Donna was asking for the bit.ly link again. So Donna, do you mean the link to, for the registration? Okay, so Donna was asking for the registration link for the webinars, and actually I'll put that, I'll actually put the actual link in the chat to the registration for the remaining webinars, and then I will stop the recording. So, oh, thank you. Oh, Mary Lou beat me to it. All right, so thank you again, and I'm going to stop the recording, and thanks everybody else.